Hello, everyone. Welcome to the AI for Good Innovation Factory. My name is Josh Choi from the ITU, International Telecommunication Union. I'm so honored to moderate AI for Good Innovation Factory Grand Final of this year. ITU is the United Nations Specialized Agency for ICTs, and we are also the organizer of the AI for Good Global Summit in partnership with 38 UN sister agencies and co-convened with Switzerland. The Innovation Factory is a program launched last year under the flagship initiative AI for Good Global Summit. In only its second year, the program continues to grow, and then with over 150 entries from 39 countries, and the 5 finalists today have a chance to not only win recognition from the ITU, but also this year we are offering a range of prizes and investment and mentoring opportunities and cloud credits and so on. So I'm so excited to see all different type of innovation from all around the world. And then now let me kickstart today's session. Firstly, I'd like to introduce Mr. Reinhard Scholl, who is the Deputy Director of the ITU Standardization Bureau, for his welcome remarks. Reinhard, please go on.
Yeah, thank you, Josh, and welcome to our distinguished judges, guests, friends, and colleagues, and a special welcome to the 5 startups that are here today to compete for the top prize. It's my pleasure to welcome you all to the AI for Good Innovation Factory Grand Finale. The ITU AI for Good platform connects AI innovators and problem solvers to build the technology for good. It is great to see this community growing and supporting projects across the United Nations in service of the Sustainable Development Goals. In its second year, as John said, this competition is growing, and it's showing us how entrepreneurs of social impact startups are working towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goals using AI. There are about 10 years left to achieve the SDGs. Is that a lot of time? Is it sufficient time? There is an insight that's attributed to a computer scientist called Roy Amara, who said in the 60s that we overestimate the impact of technology in the short term and underestimate the effect in the long run. Future is always impossible to predict. Also in the past, there could always be wars and famines and epidemics, but the basic structure of how people lived changed only slowly. So in the past, let's say 10,000 years ago, or 500 years ago, or 300 years ago, you could predict with reasonable confidence what the structure of the society or the economy or the status of technologies would look like 10 years ahead of time. But today, change seems to be happening on an ever faster scale, and not just in the field of information and communication technologies, but also in the field of microbiology, manufacturing, energy. So predicting today what our world will look like in 10 years' time, in 2030, seems to be more uncertain than ever. The solutions that are going to present today, and I'm talking to the startups here, they may help build a future that is more equal, safer, cleaner, and more sustainable. So we are looking forward to hearing your bold and new ideas tonight or today or this morning. And I wish all of you good luck as you pitch your AI solutions, and good luck also to the judges who have a very difficult job of deciding today's winner. Thank you, and back to you, Josh.
Thank you very much, Reinhard. So I'm also very excited to see all the results and all the interesting ideas and then the business models and technologies. Okay, now let me introduce today's judge. That we have 3 distinguished judges of today's grand final, and they represent the organizations who also kindly offer prizes for the finalists. Okay, so firstly, I'm pleased to introduce Mr. Stephen Ibaraki, a chairman of the Reg Capital, and he's a longtime supporter and contributor of AI for Good Summit. So Stephen, tell us about how Reg Capital and some other organization you're working with has contributed to boosting innovation, particularly in the field of AI, and also any recommendations for today's finalists, the startups, and a short of introduction about yourself as well.
Well, thank you, Josh. So I'm Are you getting any sort of echo at all?
It's fine.
Okay.
No, yeah.
So, I work across 100,000 CEOs, investors, and thought leaders with Reds Capital, and work with UN agencies and scientists and so on. So that's how we get embedded into deal flow into countries and so on. And we're pretty excited about the AI for Good program from the UNITU. It is the world's best. It's definitely the premier innovation factory. Highly recommend positive engagement. And as Reds Capital, really happy to be involved into this program.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Stephen, for being with us today. And it's also very nice to have you. Okay, so now let me introduce Mr. Carlo Torreira Breda de Belvedere. He's the CEO of Gorilla Corporation and the founder and executive chairman of Torreira Breda Institute. Thanks, Carlo, for being with us and for kind offers for the winner today. So please tell us about Gorilla Corporation and the U Institute, and also how they support the growth of the startups.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today, Josh, and the whole extended AI for Good team. It's a great honor, really, to be here. So yes, I am the Chief Executive of Gorilla Corporation. Gorilla Corporation is a global go-to-market organization. So we work with some industry giants, as well as a great number of startups. And our specialty is go-to-market. So it's developing the channels to market to scale up a business. So we're kind of the guys that pick up after the venture capitalists have put the money in, and wish the startups good luck, right? We come in and we actually help to engineer a lot of that scale up from a commercial perspective. So that's kind of our specialty. And of course, we look forward to being able to support in that manner the winner of today's contest. So that's pretty much our contribution. We'll be contributing in terms of consulting time, executive consulting time, as well as providing enterprise platform that will facilitate collaboration and partnership developments. So fundamentally, really, it's all about partnerships. When you go to market, when you grow your company, you must have, and you will have to have so many different kinds of partnerships. We can support the articulation of that and the organization of those. I'm also the executive chairman of the Torreira Breda Institute, which is a multi-stakeholder platform. It's a nonprofit. And what we do is that we seek to make the world a better place through technology innovation. And we focus particularly on artificial intelligence and security. So again, we're offering participation to the winner of the contest in our multi-stakeholder roundtables, and therefore also access to our membership, government membership, as well as private sector partnership development opportunities. Thank you, Josh.
Thanks, Carlo, for your kind introductions. Okay, last but not the least, Ms. Sarah Stollery from AWS. And Sarah, I know you are already involved in many startup-related initiatives within AWS and also innovation program as well. So could you tell us a little bit more about those programs and initiatives, and also how the credits AWS offers can be used, etc.?
Absolutely. Well, thanks, Josh and team, for having me. It's so nice to be here with all of you today. So my name is Sarah Storelli, and I oversee global program marketing at AWS within the worldwide public sector for a variety of programs. So one of which are AWS Cloud Innovation Centers at 13 different locations, primarily universities around the world. In addition to digital innovation, AWS's Innovation Studio that recently launched earlier this year in September, and then also two AWS Startup Accelerator programs, one of which is called EdStart, so that's a focus on education techs, and then another one is called GovTech Start, which is focused on government techs. And so really my whole entire career has been in B2B tech, PR, comms, marketing, strategic partnerships, really spanning tech for good, social impact, smart cities, et cetera. And so really looking forward to being here today. And lastly, in regards to the prizes, as Josh has mentioned, for first place, AWS is providing cloud service credits for $6,000 worth. And then for second place, it's $3,400 worth. So thanks again so much for having me. Really looking forward to hearing all the great innovation that's happening from all of you today.
Thank you. All right. We are also very pleased to have amazing prize offers from our sponsors. So let me briefly introduce what kind of prize we have for the winners today. All right. Firstly, the Gola Foundation and Total Breda Institute will provide some kind of marketing and advisory support, which includes a 1-year subscription license of the through channel marketing automation, as you can see here, and also plus advisory support and marketing support, which is aimed to build the sales for 4 quarterly consultative sessions. And the Red Capital will provide a due diligence process for possible investment with the Red Investment Network, which includes a lot of investors, also VCs, and year 2022 and beyond, even more than 2023s. And as Sarah said, the AWS will provide kindly, the cloud service credit, which includes the 6,000 valued credit for the winner and 3,400 valued credit for the second place. Okay, so now is the pitching time. So the pitching rule is always, as always, is the same. So 5 minutes a pitch and 10 minutes a Q&A with judges. So first stage is for Ride Safely. So Ride Safely is a road safety solution for the future of autonomous driving. The platform tests and qualifies the safety of a client's driving software and identifies vulnerability to improve safety and reliability. So Tom is here, so stage is yours, and you have 5 minutes. Please go on.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone. I'm really excited to be back with AI for Good. As mentioned, we're Ride Safely. We use AI to affordably test and scale automation throughout the enterprise, as mentioned, with a starting vertical in autonomous vehicles and supply chain. Before I go on to that, my background is essentially in the area of both auto tech startups, where I've exited a startup in the past in London, as well as Jaguar Land Rover Cars and Samsung Electronics, where I saw this problem specifically. Now, due to time, I'll move at a healthy pace, so let's get started. But please ask any questions and we can fix on any slide later. But really, what's happening across AI and automation in the enterprises, it works really well, AI and automation, when it comes to consumer use cases and non-dangerous enterprise office use cases. But when it comes to areas such as manufacturing, healthcare, autonomous cars, and logistics, sadly, one mistake by the artificial intelligence can lead to not only an accident and lives lost, but also, hold back an entire industry at times. One bad accident can actually do that. And that's really why you're not seeing AI scale, because these things need to be tested pre-deployment. So let's flesh out this problem a bit further. On a client level, clients have a scope that they need to deploy their AI to, a scope that's always changing. This change, for example, could be in automotive, it could be the pandemic roads are changing, or they're scaling from one geography to another, but also in other areas like healthcare, where it could be different patient physiologies or different cancer treatments. Trying to find that one time your AI will fail pre-deployment within that huge evolving test space is proving to be an infinite task. So when this comes to the engineer level, this infinite testing space is being badly run at this point, where engineers have, data maybe in the top left of your screen that they have to annotate and gather, such as camera data. They have manual tests that they curate to be able to find based on the data, but it's not really linked. And then they have no metrics to really know when they're done testing, with the outcome that essentially they're caught in this endless test loop that with infinite options for testing, with no real way to know when they're done. This is where Ride Safely comes in, because we've created an AI reasoning engine that creates an evolving loop between the client's AI scope and their data, such as camera data, and then we continually generate tests based on what our AI reasoning engine extracts from that data and then mines it. With that link made, we're able to report percentage confidence metrics for deployment so that they can actually see improvement and a path to deployment that they've lacked to date. So the outcome is essentially provable percentage robust deployment of their systems at 5% of the dollar tests. Now, this has all been very theoretical, so let's bring this to life in our starting vertical of autonomous vehicles. Here we take the inputs of, let's say, their scope of deployment, let's say the highway in Germany use case, and data in the form of, let's say, tons and terabytes of camera data in thousands of hours worth. We're then able to mine with our AI reasoning engine, essentially not only what has happened in this thousands of hours without human intervention, but also what potentially could happen or what other things could have happened in those events. Then with step 2, we're able to turn those possibilities into actually what matters to the client in the form of tests, in the form of 2 ways, critical and what is relevant. Critical being what's dangerous, such as for an autonomous vehicle, a car overtaking on the left-hand side at a certain speed in fog, and relevant, i.e. what's probable. So statistics to work out what can actually happen in the scope and what is less likely and thus less relevant to test. We're then able to integrate with their potential simulation test platforms to be able to rigorously test their systems continuously. And as they're testing, they see a percentage adequacy confidence metric improving. So they actually see a path to deployment and none of these delays that the industry has seen where it gets pushed back and back and back. They access this, essentially all these insights from an API so they can essentially use it on-premise and avoid any privacy concerns. Now, as mentioned, this really applies to any enterprise automation, but we're very specifically targeting the areas of autonomy for starters. And that's simply because these are hot sectors. They're very mature, very scaled, but they can't deploy. As you've seen there, most people's autonomous deadlines have been pushed back by a decade, and they're spending $100 million a year to try and test this out. But also we have a specialty in the space. I have experience in the space you'll see on the next slide. And we've mapped out that this is a $5 to $15 million problem in automotive and a $2 to $5 million problem in aviation and supply chain. With the team, as mentioned, I have experience within the auto tech space, but Sanjay is a specialist in finding anomalies in machine learning tools, and he's published in academia for this. We have a team of 6 and traction already in the form of both data agreements all the way to paid pilot contracts. And I can go into more detail in that in Q&A. But it's really most importantly about getting more data and more traction into our AI reasoning engine so that we can hit network effects and essentially become the one-stop shop safety assessor for all autonomous vehicles in the entire space. Now, I won't go into too much detail on our tech, but our real differentiation, as mentioned, is in this AI engine mapped with unique domain knowledge. But due to time, I'll pause here and please ask me any questions you have. And we're super excited to again be a part of AI for Good. So thanks so much for your time today.
And thank you very much, Tom, for your presentation. So you can stop screen sharing now. So okay, let's move to the Q&A session. So judges, anyone can start? Okay, so Sarah, please go on. And then Carlo, and then Steven.
Great, so thanks so much, Tom. I guess to get us started, can you share with us which specific SDG this tackles, or if multiple, for Sustainable Development Goals from the UN?
Gotcha. So if you take the autonomous vehicles as an example starting point, but as mentioned, it's a lot bigger than that. 1.35 million people die on the roads every year, as an example, on roads. So by essentially automating systems in cars, we can actually cut down that number. But the problem is that no one can actually deploy right now these autonomous systems due to the fact that these hidden failures and these tests in this evolving world that we live in is impossible to find. By essentially our ability to be able to put metrics on their confidence deployment of their system and test in a fraction of the time, they can speed up the deployment of their systems and start cutting into that number and the amount of deaths that actually happen on the road. So that's our key focus. That's our key social KPI we're aiming for. But then as mentioned, when we start applying this to areas that, to be frank, I don't know as well at this point, such as healthcare and other areas, there's no telling how many lives we could save.
Great. And then just not necessarily directly related to that, but just one other quick question I have is, so who do you use your largest competitor in this space? Yeah,
apologies. I kind of ran out of time to talk too much about that space. When you have to think about it, there are 2 different types of competitors. There are, internal solutions, essentially, in the autonomous vehicle space. So people like Volvo may be building their own and all this other players. And then there's players who essentially sit outside the space as third parties trying to test from the outside using domain-specific knowledge. Now, the former works essentially in small, like very small pockets of a use case. So let's say Volvo's deploying, on a test track somewhere, because essentially they have enough data to be able to find all the hidden failures. But as soon as they scale to multiple areas, let's say all highways in Germany, they can't deploy. And that's because they don't have any sort of central data repository that's shared between different players, so they can actually see network effects in essentially being able to find these failures. So that's why we can sit as an external, as that outsider. Now, when it comes to those outsider competitors, people like you make Google for Telix and others, they're trying to become that central data repository, and they're doing great work in doing so. Some of them have raised over $50 million as an example. But to be frank, they're not using AI to be able to do so. And being able to use AI to find patterns within the data is what we do really well. And it's actually why we're actually talking with Fortelix right now to potentially partner with them to solve that problem.
Great, thanks so much.
Okay, I'll go next. Yeah. So you mentioned the road safety as your social focus, right? How important is the social agenda for your company, and how central is the idea of supporting the Sustainable Development Goals for you?
It's a great question. So I think it really started with that. I mean, when Sanjay first came to me with the idea of finding faults in machine learning systems broadly, he came to me and pitched the idea of starting with roads, because he came from downtown New Delhi in India. And he laughed at the idea that people were saying that Waymo is going to deploy autonomous vehicles, because he was like, try and apply this tech to New Delhi and you'll see how quickly it breaks. These roads are dangerous across the world. And unless you have, as mentioned, a central AI-based data essentially player like ourselves, being able to share knowledge between multiple clients, to be able to find these small faults that vary between different locations, you're not going to be able to deploy any of these systems, and people are going to continue to die. So it really became our starting point. But then, of course, we need to make a profitable business on top of that. And so again, autonomous vehicles makes sense here because I have a great network here. I know how to enter the space using certain programs. So using my cold networks that have closed us our initial traction. And then also, it's a $64 billion market right now. So that's the balance there. Of course, it's both. But, it started with that question from my colleague, Sanjay.
Okay, and so with regards to your total addressable market that you just mentioned, what's your idea as to how to best meet that market? Because, of course, as you point out, it could be a very big market. And certainly in terms of value, it's a big market. Can you give us a better idea of what your customer actually looks like and how many of those there are and how you're going to go about reaching them and how you're going to use partnerships to achieve that?
Yeah, lots of questions there, but let me see what I can do. So when you look at the market size, like that number I threw out is a SAM market size. So, it's essentially top down mixed with bottom up. But I always prefer serviceable addressable market because that essentially tells you exactly who your client is. So that's about $1 billion within automotive alone. And we came with that number because there's 14 sort of largest automotive OEMs. So Volvo, Volkswagen, etc. But then there's actually about 100 other suppliers in this space. So essentially people like Bosch Group, Continental Group, and then tech players like Waymo and Aurora, even Uber ATG until they got acquired. So that comes to about 112, 113 players. With the dollar market size mapped from my own personal knowledge of what our competitors match, because a VC essentially told me, they essentially charge anywhere between $5 and $15 million per client. So if you start to map those numbers up, they become close to the sort of $1 billion mark. And then our idea is that once, insurance also gets involved, which we haven't had much time to talk about here, but their ability to be able to insure and underwrite models for these systems, that will bump us up to the $1 billion mark. Essentially, that's our idea for approaching these. I haven't touched the partnerships angle yet, but I'll pause just in case you have a follow-on question on the numbers first.
I beg your pardon. No, that will be it for me. But if you do want to mention something about your idea regarding partnerships, I really wouldn't mind hearing that.
Great. Yeah. So our approach is, in short, is pretty simple. We started off with data agreements because we were small earlier in the year. Just give us your data and we'll see what we can do. And then we turned it into informal pilots where we had KPIs, but again, unpaid. And now we've got formal pilots, essentially paid pilots set up, where if we hit certain goals, they can trigger these sort of larger $1 million amounts. The pilots, though, are essentially discounted engineer rates. So they come to tens of thousands of dollars essentially at this point. The idea is to continue to scale up to the point where we're automotive ready, because most of the players we're working with right now are suppliers. So we need to invest in tech to be able to get to the size of serving a Volvo or someone who we're in deep contact with. But to be frank, they said to us very bluntly, like, you need to build out your tech about another 4 months to get to where we need to, which is why we're fundraising in January, February next year.
Thanks, Tom.
Not all.
So right now, I'm hearing that you're pre-revenue, so you're running pilots at some kind of a discounted rate. What's your anticipated time when you're going to have revenue, and what does that sort of escalation look like? I see you're incorporated in 2021, so you're very early stage, and it looks like your fundraiser is actually friends and family right now. So what does that revenue sort of path look like? And notable client path, for example, you have letters of intent where you reach a certain mark, and then, notable clients will come online. So it's really sort of a financial series of questions here.
Yeah, it's a good question. Any VC will ask similar questions. And we started, by the way, of funding from a global accelerator called Entrepreneur First, who have helped us a lot in refining this narrative. But you're right, angel investors have been our current to date. In short, what we've told them, and the idea being, is that it comes down to being able to prove out our tech in these pilots that are really important. Because if we can prove it to them and essentially say, we will save you X, let's say $10 million or $100 million, it will vary between client, but X amount of money in this pilot, then we can very simply charge 10% of that rate, which is industry standard, to be able to come to a dollar figure. And that's how we came to that sort of $1 to $50 million figure. Now, to be very clear, what we have to promise to them to be able to get to the next step is larger pilots with clients who can pay that amount. So that's the kind of Volvo people. So our timeline is very simple, is we want to close pilot contracts with larger clients by sort of January, February this year. We want to raise a second round based on that, which will be still seed, but it will be starting to tap those sort of early VCs who take more risk. And then at that point, they are happy to invest on lower revenue amounts, but larger clients. But then we'll use the funds from that over the next year and a half to turn those into real, let's say, actionable, large dollar salaries. And those would be, as mentioned, anywhere between $1 and $15 million. So that's the kind of goal that we're going for timeline-wise. It seems to be appropriate for the VCs that we've spoken to date, but obviously we'll be able to tell you more come January, February.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. That's all of my questions.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time. Josh, am I done?
Yes, thank you very much. Okay, so you can move and then come back again, right? So
yeah,
you had done everything.
I've got a client call I've got to join, but thank you, everyone. I'll join for the announcement. Thanks, everyone.
Right. Bye. Okay, good luck. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. Okay, thanks a lot to Tom and also to all our judges. Actually, I missed a very important information about the public vote. Actually, before we move to the second session, I'd like to inform the audience that at the end of the competition, we will show all the audience a link to a vote for the best theme. So all the audience except for startups and judges can vote for the best 2 teams. And a team who's got the largest number of the votes will have an opportunity to be interviewed by the ITU communication team and also highlighted in ITU news articles and blog. Right, so we will show the link at the end of the session. So all the audience, and then please watch all the sessions carefully, and then keep in mind that, okay, you guys have to vote for the 2 teams. All right, okay, now let's move on to the second team. The second team is Dr. On Call from Malaysia. So Dr. On Call is a remote healthcare application where patients can have medical video visits on their smartphone or computers at any time of the day and anywhere through their medical video consultations. All right, so Dr. Cole, the stage is yours. So Norman is doing, or Yeah.
I'll be doing the presentation. Thank you, John.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So you have 5 minutes.
Okay, hopefully everyone can see my screen. So today I'll be walking you through the AI factory for digital healthcare. As we all know, healthcare is very important and essential, right? It is the third sustainability and development goal for the United Nations. It is genuinely very important. And yet, during the last pandemic, we've seen some of the many challenges that we already knew existed being highlighted during the wake of the pandemic, where it's getting harder and harder for people to get the medical services that they require. Healthcare affordability is plummeting. And the reason is, we believe, is that healthcare is way overdue for its next big leap, leveraging the various different digital technologies and accounting for them. And that's exactly what we have been doing here in Dr. On Call. As you'll see in some slides, we have genuinely thrived during the COVID-19 pandemic. And the reason is we've provided a digital platform to improve healthcare for over 700 million different users, making it safer, faster, and more affordable for people. And we intend to take the next leap by bringing AI to healthcare. Right? So this is a simple study that we've seen here time after time. We've seen how AI can outperform humans in their ability to detect. So for example, here we have AI outperforming professional radiologists in instances, detecting breast cancer in images that humans have failed to detect, right? So healthcare is genuinely very powerful, and we want to leverage it, right? We want to bring it into healthcare. And so instead of doing what most people do and focusing on specific AI solutions, such as this one, and implementing them, we instead introduced the Dr. On Call AI Factory, a project whose goal is to allow for people to build their own artificial neural networks without necessarily understanding the nuances behind the technology itself. So for healthcare providers, they can use it to build their own AI models, to deploy them and use them via APIs. And for us, we can use them to create AI screening. And again, the trick here is to link our artificial intelligence for it to compensate for our existing ecosystem, to again abstract the user experience and provide them with a very interactive and intuitive thing to take off some of the pressure from medical healthcare providers, right? So it will be for patients or public users. So the system is very user friendly, as you can see here. A single user can manage multiple projects. Here we see a single project view where the user have uploaded a couple of X-ray images, right, and split them into the respective tasks. The next step would be explanatory data analysis. So again, without needing to understand data science or understanding how the data work, the system will provide an evaluation of the sufficiency of the data and whether or not it can be used for training, right, and provide reliable results. So once the client decides that they want to indeed train their model, they can monitor its progress in real time, as you can see here. And then lastly, they can test their model. And once they're satisfied with what they have, they can embed it within whatever platform they want. And this is done via the API layer. So again, as you can see, the workflow here, build whatever kinds of models the user might require, and then they can be embedded into any platform to deploy those AI solutions without necessarily understanding the nuance, right? And the power here is, as we've always seen consistently, whenever there's a new powerful technology, any innovation that makes this technology more accessible for people is always a win. So we already have actually on Dr. On Call many projects that are powered by the AI factory, such as HIV detection and skin cancer. And one of the ones that we're most proud of, which is by the way live right now, in fact, I have it open in one of my tabs, is the Spot project, right? You can very easily go onto this, upload an image, and then it will instantly give you the classification for any skin issues that you have. And again, I can't stress this enough. Most importantly, it connects you to the system, right? You don't just get simple results. Based on the results that you get, we immediately connect you so that you don't have to worry about where you should go or how you should handle, right? It's, again, helping the bigger system, helping the ecosystem expand. So the market size is really huge for healthcare and artificial intelligence. It's just a little under 200 billion users, where again, we can provide our services to clients such as patients and doctors. For patients, we've just seen like the Spot project. For doctors, can help aid them with their own work and again, pivot away the pressure that they have. For businesses, they can leverage it without necessarily understanding the nuance behind AI, as we've discussed, and deploy and embed their own artificial neural networks, right? So like I said, Dr. On Call, we have a huge healthcare ecosystem, and we spent the last couple of years helping clients and expanding our own reach to help people out. So our market is huge, and we genuinely know what we're doing, right? As you can see here, while most people in the healthcare industry struggled during the pandemic, we have thrived, like over 600 times growth, over improvement, because what we do works, right? This is the direction things should take, and this is what works. We understand what we do, and this is why we have been thriving through the last couple of years. We have won many achievements and awards, as you can see here. We have the best team working on this project day and night, and we have the best management team supporting us. So help us help the world, right? Winning the AI for Good competition will help us accelerate the development instantly, which is something the market needs, right? It will help us expand our market. It will help us reach out more users. And more importantly, it is a win for healthcare, because this way we can provide more services sooner and help people in healthcare to deal with this pandemic and any future pandemic that may arise. My name is Yahya Saleh. Thank you so much. I think we can go to Q&A now. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks a lot for your presentations. As you can now stop your screen sharing, and perhaps we can start Q&A maybe
Josh?
this time. Yes?
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you. I've actually have some visuals and some things that I might show that might be relevant during Q&A. So is it fine for me to keep the slide on?
All right. Okay, well, yes, you can keep it if you wish. All right, so maybe this time we can start with Carlo or Stephen.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's a really interesting solution you have there. So so far, obviously you've done a lot of R&D, and you're already in quite a advanced stage of your development. How accurate have you found your diagnosis to be so far? Can you give us an idea of accuracy rates, let's say?
Okay, so I think that's a very good question, right? And for many of the AI projects that we see, the target is, finding it to be as accurate as possible. Yeah, and I think what we're doing is that we've seen some of the accuracies, right? It's around the 80 to 90% mark, and we're trying to improve some of these things. Some of the things that we can get up to 95%, like some of this, like facial analysis that we have, right? It actually detects your heartbeat using a camera. So there's up to 95%. So it varies based on the data, right? So the more data you feed it, then the more closer it gets to a good sample size and gets better accuracy with that. And so far, we've done around 30 to 40,000 images that we've studied across the world, like skin images, HIV images. So it's really a function of how much data you can get from around the world, from across the world, from different skin colors and these data sets, right? Now, because of this, right, when you do healthcare for AI for healthcare, there is a huge fear of doctors feeling like you're replacing doctors, and that is not what we want. The way we have taken our AI project is that we want to empower doctors, and we are positioning more like a initial screening system. So if you saw in the flow earlier, there's always a quick scan for you. So we're essentially giving out sort of AI for free, and you take a picture of your skin, you take a picture of your lesions, it looks at it and tells you there is a risk of you having this disease. And from there, you talk to a doctor. And that is our ecosystem, the doctor's ecosystem and the pharmacist ecosystem. And so it helps boost our ecosystem. It helps get people understand their risks to get in to talk to a doctor. There are many people in the world currently where, they're either too afraid to talk to a doctor, number one, or, they are scared of the initial cost, or, they're just so inconvenient. And what we aim to do with AI is not necessarily, like I said, only the accuracy, but then it's more of the availability to give it to everyone so that they can use it very quickly and then decide whether should I talk to a professional. Yeah, so that's our main goal.
Appreciate that. And my second question, if I may, is if you could maybe elucidate a little bit on your commercial model. So essentially, who's going to pay you the money? Is it going to be the insurance companies? Is it going to be the consumers? Is it going to be the medical practices? What can you flesh it out a little bit for me, please?
Yeah. Okay. Can you go to the slide on the revenue and then move to the slide on the ecosystem? So we'll illustrate two slides, right? So one is the revenue growth, slide 13. Yeah. So I think we've been growing at a very exponential rate, and it's part of how we've been building our ecosystem on slide 12. So if you go to slide 12, what we plan to do, what we've been doing is that we've been building our ecosystem, a payer ecosystem and a provider ecosystem. So the payers are people like insurance companies, where what they want to do is that they want to roll out as many health screenings as possible, as cheaply as possible, to millions and millions of members. So they will utilize something like this sort of AI, have all these screenings, have all the risks involved, if identified from their millions of members, and then they pay us $1 or $2 per member. Yeah? So that's how their payers work. and they also pay for services, right? So once our doctors screen and they dispense medicine, so the payers pay for it. On the provider side, the doctor side, they use our services, we give them business. So the best way to illustrate Doctor on Call, we are Uber for healthcare. We are providing a platform, and we are two-sided. We have the supply and we have a demand side as well, and we match all of them onto one super app platform.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's an interesting company. You've been around now for about 5 years. I can see you have about 100 employees, and you've done a reasonable raise. It sounds like a Series A at 5 million, or at least beyond a seed round. And I notice you're looking at a fairly big next round, just looking at your data. From a financial standpoint, are you revenue positive in essence without the raise?
Yep. So actually, we are profitable without the raise. So we've grown very rapidly. And if we choose to stop growing, yes, we are profitable, net positive, based on our revenues coming in, because we have quite a huge amount of income streams that we built over the past. And tomorrow, actually, we are just launching another platform. I've launched a business during the pandemic, one business every 2 months. And there's one revenue stream every 2 months in the last 24 months. So it's been quite hectic for us. So we get revenue streams from government, insurance companies, corporate clients. So Dyson is one, I probably won't say that, but one of our clients. We have like large corporates as well. We work with multiple hospitals who are in the regional players, yeah. And yeah, we work with large insurance companies, 10 or 12 of the largest in the world right now, in our region. Yeah. So we've been growing really rapidly in that.
So are some of your clients then also strategic investors? For example, some of the insurance companies and others that you're working with?
We do have very, very strategic investors in the last round, but I'm afraid I can't reveal this at this point in time. So we can set up a private conversation to talk about in more detail about investments and who are investing in us. But they are very big players in the market right now.
I noticed you're regional. What are your scaling plans in the next 2 years?
Yeah, so I think one of the interesting about Doctor on Call, we are a multilingual platform and we localize. And this has been sort of a key selling point for us. We localize in the local languages because Southeast Asia is just like Europe, right? There's a huge amount of diverse languages around. And our platform is really, we plan to go multilingual across the nation. So as of now, we are in 3 countries. We have plans to move it to 5 countries and to go beyond just Southeast Asia. So we are actually primarily in Malaysia right now, but we've more or less absorbed the whole entire market. We are leaders in the market right now, and we do want to move to the next level. And we are making the investments. We are building 3 more platforms, which hopefully you see in the next 2 or 3 months to really go to a regional setting.
Great, thank you.
Hi there. So one other just quick question I have is, so what is the biggest differentiator with your product, given that there are, a variety of apps out there, that are being done. So I'm just really curious to understand that. And then really from the marketing side, since it seems like you're targeting a variety of folks within the ecosystem, but I'm just curious to hear a little bit more about, I guess, kind of the go-to-market or just your overall marketing strategy, for who you're targeting.
Yeah, so maybe I'll tell you the story, how we started on this sort of project, right? And we looked at the big players. So that's definitely people like Google, Amazon with their own AI, machine learning sort of offerings. And we tried it. It's a bit expensive, number one. And number two is that as a doctor, as a medical practitioner, I won't be the person to open up Google or Amazon and try to find my way, fiddle around. How am I going to use this and use it to my customer, right? So what we did was, for Doctor on Call, we have a huge ecosystem in the sense that we are an ecosystem player, whereas a lot of our competitors in the digital health space, they actually own clinics, they actually own pharmacies and own hospitals, right? But let's think about it, right? Uber doesn't own any taxis, right? Uber doesn't own any restaurants. So with that, we don't own any of these pharmacies. We partner with all of them, and then therefore we can scale very quickly. So we are pure ecosystem play. We don't own any of the assets that traditionally be incorporated with like a medical field, right? So we are pure platform play, and that allows us to navigate very quickly And I think one of the key things that we bring is the last mile connection. So talking to doctors, we are all there talking to doctors on a regular basis, teaching them how to use. So without a go-to-market team, so Google and Amazon, you guys cannot go down to the doctors and tell the doctor, hey, use this for your patient, or use this, click this. You just don't have the time and the people to go to reach, to have that reach. Whereas we go down to the ground, we are in front of doctors on a regular basis. We are in front of clinics and hospitals and the pharmacies on a regular basis. So we cover the last mile sort of integration to the partners.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Dr. Cole, and then thanks a lot to all the judges for great Q&A sessions, and then thanks a lot for your presentation, great, excellent. Okay, well, the audience also can ask questions through the Q&A, so we are not going to deal with the questions from the audience within the Q&A session, but all the finalists today can have a look at the Q&A. If you find the question relevant to your presentation, please feel free to write the reply and to answer the questions. I think I saw there is already one question for Dr. Uncle for now, so you guys can check it. All right, thank you very much again. So let's move to the third pitch. So third team is Cattle from the USA. The Cattle is a smart reinsurance model to better predict the catastrophic effects of climate change. And then it is a predictive underwriting platform built for the modern world using better data and deep learning to lower costs and minimize risk. So we have Nathaniel here. So Nathaniel, so if you're ready, and then go on.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. Appreciate the time. So let me jump right in. Kettle, our mission is really to balance risk in a changing climate. And what we do is use deep learning and AI to better reshape the reinsurance industry. I always like to say we're using 21st century technology to underwrite and understand 21st century risks. The team is really this double helix of the reinsurance industry and the technology industry. My background, I spent 6-7 years running the largest open source software platform for crisis response called Ushahidi. And then before that, I was working on open data and was the first chief data officer at USAID. And my partners come from leading the technology teams at large reinsurance companies, Argo Group, XL Catlin, other ones. And so we bring together these core experiences of the market and then also the technology. Our industry, you might not know much about reinsurance. It's something that usually causes people's eyes to glaze over. But the really important thing is this is the safety net below the safety net, particularly for catastrophic climate risk. So it's a $400 billion industry. That's $400 billion in gross written premium a year. And essentially what it is the say an Allstate or any other, this is just an example, but any other kind of home insurer or individual insurer might cover anything that could go wrong with your house, getting robbed, the roof leaking, but also it getting burned down in a fire, it getting taken out by a hurricane. What they don't plan for, or what they don't, it doesn't make sense for them, economic sense for them to hold the cash on hand to take to deal with when 1,000 or 10,000 of these homes are wiped out once in a single fire or a hurricane. So what they do is they do the same thing we all do. They buy insurance. They buy it from someone like Kettle, and then this risk is shared down the throughout the market. And so we help to bring in other partners as well, as like big brand name like you might have come across, like the Munich Re, or also like other capital market groups like the pension funds, etc. The thing with this industry is that there has been a 3x increase in billion-dollar catastrophes over the last 15 years. And for the industry that underwrites catastrophe, it's spelled a financial catastrophe, a 68% drop in return on equity over the last 10 years. And the reason, in our opinion, is really clear. The models are no longer working. So the way that this has been done for years is you run a stochastic model off of the last 500 years of where fires are. I'm using the primary indicator of historical fires and to try to predict the next 10 years. So, hey, this spot right here, there's been 2 fires here in the last 100 years, therefore it has a 1 in 50 chance of burning. The problem is that it's right there in the words, climate changed. So you can't use the last 500 years of data to really predict the next 10 years as accurately as you used to be able to. And while that's still an important indicator, what you now need to do is build a lot more knowledge and intelligence into these systems. So the other thing is that the timing is really perfect right now. And the reason why is you've got these outdated models, you've got the machine learning infrastructure that's now affordable and possible to run this. You've got 30 years of geospatial weather data. You also have a hardened market. So there's been a 50 billion increase in wildfire claims, which I'll get into. Our first product to markets are around wildfires, just in the last 4 years due to climate change. In addition, you've got COVID, you've got increasing hurricane risks. You've all kind of seen the news and these increasing climate risks. And that's caused specifically in wildfire, 300% increase in wildfire pricing. In addition, you've got a 60% underinsured rate in places like California, and in the developing world, you've got something like a 90% underinsured rate. So there's a lot of room for that market. That market of 400 billion should be much larger to actually cover the real risk. And in the competition, classic, the big insurers have the innovator's dilemma. The new entrants all sort of take a SaaS approach, and no one, which is a $3 billion market versus the $400 billion market, and also has caused a lot of horizontalization in the marketplace, which isn't good. And I can talk about that. And so you need an organization, a startup like ours, that really brings together both the business experience, the market experience, as well as the technology experience. So quick deep dive into the technology. What we do is we divide the whole, I mentioned our first product around wildfires in California. We divide California into 419,000 square kilometer grids. We pull all this data from satellite, and we run 500 billion simulations using ML. And the results of that are that we, in 2020, we were able to predict 14 of the 14 largest wildfires in the top 20% riskiest areas, which is good for us because we don't insure anything in the top 25% riskiest areas, according to our model. 91% of those 419 grids we were able to predict of the populated grids accurately whether it would have a fire or not. And essentially what this turns out into for our capital providers, a 19% gross return. We use these kind of indicators: temperature, precipitation, drought, wind. There's actually now 65 different indicators into our models. And really what it breaks down to is right here. While we're pulling 130 terabytes compared to the industry norm of historical data, just with one primary indicator of historical wildfires, running 10K simulations on a stochastic zip code level, and ultimately resulting kind of 4 to 6% return on equity with 70% actual loss ratios. We're looking at 65 indicators, 500 billion simulations compared to 10,000. 20% model loss ratios, but better to overpromise or underpromise and overdeliver. 0.5% actual loss ratios in 2020 with a 19% return on capital. You can get an idea of what we actually build kind of the front end of the product, and the whole point of the company is to do good. So we give this away to decision makers, and as well as our customers. There's these tools to make better decisions. And we're actually in market. We have 2 products in market. One's a parametric solution, and one's this excess loss product that we are distributing with Amwins. Lastly, you might wonder kind of how this business model really works. Great, we've raised some money, now we can insure 2 houses in Palo Alto. We build a marketplace, and we build together. We bring together capital providers, and really what we do is we transfer risk and make the most sense in understanding that risk. We take a portion of that, so to other risk capital providers in the market. And the sky's the limits here. There's a $300 billion serviceable market, as I mentioned, working on growing 2 key things: verticalizing and holding some of that risk ourselves, as well as diversifying into other perils like storm, wind, and flood, et cetera. And our theory and what we're seeing is that just like with wildfire, you're going to see all of these different markets harden much more quickly, as in the pricing will go up because you'll have things like convective storm or the floods in Europe. et cetera, more and more often due to climate change. I'll leave it there. Thank you very much.
Okay, now it's Q&A time. So maybe this time we can start from Stephen.
Yeah, it's an interesting model. In fact, at Reds Capital, we've actually invested in this space as well. So, and our portfolio is doing very, very well.
Good to hear.
So, yeah, the whole reinsurance aspect and using AI machine learning applied to it. So it's huge returns. I noticed that you're really a relatively new company, but you've done a pretty big raise. Can you talk about that? And are you able to disclose maybe some of the institutional or strategic investors? That it looks bigger than the friends or family round. So,
it certainly has been, yeah. So we're like any of these things, you work on it for a lot of years before you kind of really go out in the public. But we've been out in the world for 2 years, and we raised 2 rounds. We raised a seed round and a Series A total of about $30 million. And the predominant amount of that money comes from the venture fund, the technology venture world. So all this is public, but like True Ventures led our seed, Accrue led our A. Some of the other kind of strategic folks, Lower Carbon Capital is an investor, and those are kind of the key ones. There's a lot more, but I can get into that.
Yeah, you got a pretty big raise coming up. So what's your plans for that?
The next raises? We are, so there's actually 2 things we're doing. As I kind of mentioned, maybe quickly, where we bring this capital to work and provide a return, right? And so we are actually raising a balance sheet. It's not an equity diluting raise in the same way as an A or B, right? But what it does is, much like LPs into a venture fund, we give a return. They're investing into the products, into the reinsurance products themselves, and providing the capital, hence the 19% sort of gross return that we expect from that investment. That's very exciting for us, because what it does is, in many ways, lets us just move faster than in our current model as what's called an MGA in the insurance world, as a managing general agent. And we'll still do both. We'll be able to combine and bring in other capital as well, the traditional reinsurance capital. The way we do that is, you run a bunch of models, and we use the real data from all of our deals over the last 2 years, and then we go out to the market and say, hey, this is what we think we can provide. And the real value that people are excited about that is it's an uncorrelated asset, right? So as an investment financial product, it's I think there's 2 real key parts. One is it's uncorrelated, so the attraction of whether or not there's a lot of hurricanes or fires is not directly related to whether or not the stock market crashes or goes up or down, right? Those returns should be not correlated. And then the second is, we really is that this is an ESG investment. What you're really doing is putting your money to work, protecting people, and bringing stability back into the reinsurance and insurance and then real estate markets. And when you do pay out, what you're doing is you're paying out people who lost their homes due to climate change events. So it's never fun to lose money, but it might feel a little better.
One quick question: can you disclose your annual return revenue this year or next year?
This last year we have roughly, there's a couple of different ways to measure this, but we have catalyzed, I would say, 8.5 million in gross written premium through the deal structures we have. We only take a portion of that because we don't hold most of the risk. Yeah, that's the deal, the key deals we have in process right now. The other thing to know is, timing wise, a lot of reinsurance gets sold on 1/1. So there's a lot of deals that are in the process right now, as in the first of the year. But they're not inked yet, so I won't say anything.
Great, thank you.
Absolutely.
Oh, great. So I have one quick question on the marketing front. So since you're already in market, can you just share a little bit about your growth strategy of what that looks like kind of from now moving forward, at least in the near term?
Sure, yeah. So one of the things, so as far as marketing goes, I mean, we're very much a B2B product, right? We're selling to big insurance companies. And most of that is done through brokers. And so, in fact, often it is legally required to do it through a broker. So we work with all the big brokers, the Aons, the Guy Carps, the Willis, and the marketing part of that is really kind of putting together very clear reviews of what happened last year. Financial docs. It's not like we go out to individuals. No one's going to go buy Kettle product at the end of this. By the way, like it's very much that in that B2B level, but it's really communicating a technical product, the technology. The key things we've seen is really how do you communicate AI to an industry that, it's like, can I trust this? Like, how do I know that you say you're smarter and more right, but like, can you really prove it to me? And can I trust it? And so that's a big part of it. And then the second is really now just building on the few years of financial returns and being like, look, like, here's how our models did, and they did better than the norm, and building that trust and partnership.
Got it. Thanks so much.
Absolutely.
And yeah, so I wanted to ask you, Nathaniel, if you could give us an idea of what your product roadmap looks like after the California wildfire solution that you've got in place. What's next?
Absolutely. There are two ways we go. One is geography, so continuing with the same wildfire products and moving into other parts of the world. Someone mentioned scale, just a second ago. One of the nice parts about the business that we're in is, one, those big brokers I mentioned, they serve pretty much everyone in the world outside of really kind of like China and North Korea. But they work in almost everywhere. So we can very easily say, hey, we want to move into Australia, into South Africa, into Greece, and they all have representation. They're global companies. The other thing is we incorporate and run all of our risks through Bermuda, which is actually the most advanced and on top of it regulatory structure for reinsurance in the world. So everyone prefers to buy through there, but it also means it's very easy for us to go sell into anywhere else. But specifically one is geography, so moving into new places. The second is thinking about moving into new perils. And the way we always think about that is in a kind of a classic XY 2x2. On one axis, you have where will machine learning and AI actually make a measurable difference? So on one side of that, on the negative side of that, might be like earthquakes. Earthquakes are pretty stochastic. Like, can machine learning really actually do a better job of predicting? Maybe a little bit with damage, but actually being able to predict when one's going to happen, not so much. On the other side, you have fires, right? There's over 50,000 fires a year. 14 of them cause 99% of the damage. That's a great data set to work off of and figure out, why is it that these 14 went crazy and these other ones all go out, or things. And so on the other axis is the price dislocation. We can build a better wind and flood model than anybody else. But if we come in and say, hey, it's $4 million for $100 million of coverage, but the market is selling it at $3 million, everyone will go, why the heck would I buy it from you? Like, well, we're right. Who cares? Like, you're more expensive. Whereas right now we can come in and win in fire, right, and say, hey, we can sell it to you this for half the price of what you're getting from everybody else. So you have to wait for that dislocation. And what we've seen is convective storms. And then with this last season, floods in Europe and Ida in the US, causing some market hardening there. And convective storm is what kind of happened in Texas last year, like extreme freezes that are affecting.
Thank you. And with regards to the Sustainable Development Goals, clearly there, I can see where you're going, but maybe in your own words, could you sort of define what specific SDG goals you feel that you're aligning to in particular?
Absolutely. Yeah, we really feel we're aligned in 11 and 13. So 11 being resilience, really there is the way I think about it is, look, I worked in climate mitigation for the first few years and my career in clean tech. And there was a moment where I realized that, unfortunately, we kind of lost, we kind of failed as a population, as humanity. I worked on carbon clean tech, clean development mechanism, and we didn't get it. And I realized there's a lot of people are going to get hurt. And now the data is there, 3x increase in billion-dollar catastrophes over the last 15 years. And so question is, how do you build a better safety net? This to me is a key part of resilience. There's part of that is like structural, physical buildings and things. But the other part is like when people get their homes burned down or their lives ruined, they kind of just want to check. They want to get back to their life. They want to be able to rebuild. And that is insurance. And insurance is kind of this beautiful thing where we all pool our money together. While it feels terrible to pay your premiums every day, what you're actually doing is saying, hey, Carlo, if your home is the one that burns down or gets hit by a hurricane, I'll throw you, 0.1% of that cost. And so will 1,000 other people, and you'll be able to rebuild your house because I know you do it for me next year if it's me that gets hit. And that's really kind of cool. And so that's 11. And then on 13, the climate action, it's really clear, like, taking its impacts of climate change. Like, how are we we need to build a much better safety net, because that 3x number, unfortunately, I think is only going to go up. And the current safety net, the current parachute is like not big enough. So we need to bring a lot more capital into it, and it needs to actually be making good returns, and it needs to be using the best models out there to understand this new risk to attract that capital and better protect people. Because otherwise, what happens is the only safety net below this one is government essentially, and printing more money.
Thank you for answering my questions, Nathaniel.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you, Raf Jonathan, again for your presentation. Thanks a lot for answering all the questions from the judges.
Absolutely.
All right, so, okay, thank you, great. Okay, so good luck. And all right, okay, so we actually started with the pitch from a startup, headquartered in Canada, and we moved to Malaysia and moved to the US, and now we are moving to Ecuador. So Talov Studio. So Talov Studio has developed, assistive technologies, including AI-powered hearing, a visual assistant to assistant persons that are blind, and develops AI communication tools to enable persons with disabilities to communicate without barriers. So we have Hugo here, and Hugo is the founder and CEO of Talov Studio, and the stage is yours, and you've got 5 minutes.
Okay, thanks. Hello, let me share the screen. It's in full screen right now, right?
Yes, go on. Okay,
so well, I'm Hugo, and I'm the co-founder and president of Talov. Did you know that in the last hour, 1,004 deaf and 620 blind people were born in all the world, and it's highly probable they will experience a very challenging daily life. So we're going to speak about inclusion. Just considering hearing and visual impairment, in the world there are 760 million people, and 30% of them have a smartphone. According to the UN SDG, this represents huge social challenges regarding education, cost of some technical aids, and even the cost of unemployment. But how to tackle them? Our work is one step in the right direction. We use artificial intelligence and mobile phones to improve independence levels for people with disabilities. Currently, we have 2 apps that work without internet in real time and are compatible with up to 48 languages. The first one is Speedy. It's a digital assistant for deaf people. It can detect sign language with the camera, identify hundreds of sounds, and have some transcription features from voice to text and text to voice. The other one is Vision, a digital assistant for visual impairment. It can detect objects and their position, the relative position. It can read text. That's very important because users no longer have to depend only on braille system. It can detect more occurrences in money bills. Trying to identify money bill for blind people, it's truly challenging. It has accessible maps navigation, among other tools to give these people more independence. These are our competitors. Among them, they are quite scary names like Google and Microsoft. In general, they have a good performance, but all of them have a little big problem. They depend on remote online servers, resulting in latency. Latency can be the difference between being well and having a problem or even an accident. So our key differentiators are multi-feature apps, and the AI inference is done inside the device in real time without burning the devices or the batteries. This is our team. We are a unique team. Both co-founders were researching about how to solve social challenges through technology since many years ago. So that's why around 2008, Carlos was researching about how to code mobile apps and with a social purpose. And I was researching and developed a software that was able to generate real-time images from the sound input. So with certain visual elements or clues, people with hearing impairment can infer information about what's happening in their surroundings in real time. Jan and Eric are people with disabilities. They contribute with their own academic background, but also with their high experience in product research and development for their own communities. Gustavo is our general counsel, and this inclusive teamwork has produced results. Talov, since the beginning, has had a great evolution, and our work has been recognized across the world. But definitely our most important achievement is to make a positive impact in people's life. This is our current traction, includes in the B2C structure, includes free and paying users from 86 countries, mainly Europe, North America, and Asia Pacific. Often territories with a better situation regarding respect and inclusion to people with disabilities, but also with higher technological access conditions. Therefore, we want to make it to the next step with a good B2B structure with interested organizations in those territories. Our business model is a freemium plus subscription. So we have 3 plans. We're available in 175 countries through App Store and Play Store, and of course, they can only be delivered with up to 48 languages. Also, we must highlight our social mission beyond just business. So in addition to our revenue growth, we have a free and unlimited access program to our technology for the most vulnerable people. We started by our country last year, and growing as a company will allow us to expand this program to other territories too, alongside with specific organizations and within their social assistance programs. That's how we will continue with our social mission while making even higher positive impact. But there's one more thing. We have demonstrated this technology is reliable in one of the most challenging scenarios, accessibility. Camera-based gesture recognition, artificial intelligence, noise canceling, accurate sound identification, among many others. These tools are worth applying for other industries. So it's time to expand the span of our technology for other businesses related with AI, or even industries that still don't realize how the power of this kind of AI can cause a major shift in their operations. Always having the human well-being as the first goal. So let's make together from this world a better place. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Hugo, for your great presentation. Okay, let's move to Q&A session. So now, maybe this time, maybe we can start with Sarah.
Great, thanks so much. Really appreciated your presentation. So from the marketing side, can you talk a little bit about just overall your marketing strategy?
Yes, to be honest, we haven't done our really like conscious marketing strategy, because the traditional marketing often doesn't work in the same way with people with disabilities. I mean, let's imagine a beautiful Instagram campaign, and of course, what happened with people that cannot see the screen? So Instagram gets like nothing. So the main things that we have done are trying to make the ads directly on the App Store. Actually, 63% of all the downloads are directly because users directly search for keywords like app for blind people, app for deaf people in their languages. So we do that. We make that, but of course we cannot do it with a very large budget yet, and that's the way we reach people. The other way is to find organizations, but yeah, we have had like different experiences with organizations. I mean, some organizations, for example, of interpreters of sign language, think that we are going to take their jobs. with this technology. So they quite, let's say, they don't hate us, but they don't like us. Okay, so it's a very complex scenario trying to build a technology that many people think that probably can replace humans in some aspects, but our goal will never be replace human work.
Got it. Makes sense. And then just one follow-up then. So, I mean, kind of given that dynamic, I mean, so then who really then would be your ultimate target audience?
The ultimate target audience is, of course, the person that experienced the disability. But we have to remember that around this person, often there's the family, and there could be some organizations around this person. So we think that's why we want to, right now to make a major shift to a B2B structure, because to be honest, the B2C structure, I mean, focusing directly on the user with disability, was really affected by pandemic. I mean, many people wrote us with things like, "Hi guys, I lost my job, so I cannot, I don't have credit card, I cannot continue paying on the app stores," things like that. So we think also our ultimate client, but not user, could be organizations interested in improve their conditions about accessibility. Could be organizations, private and public, for their customers, for their own workers, for their clients, etc.
Got it. Thank you. That's really helpful.
You're welcome.
Yeah, if I may, Josh, I'll jump in. So yeah, Hugo, tell me a little bit more about what, you were sort of beginning to touch on that just now with Sarah. I'm interested in your partner strategy. So especially if you're pivoting to a B2B model, have you given some thought to what kinds of organizations are actually going to be your partners in this, and how are they going to help you to scale up? And then in tandem, if you could also flesh out a little bit more about what your business model looks like on the B2B lens.
Okay, Carlo, the last part of your question was like interrupted. So please, can you repeat?
Yeah. If I could understand better, now that you're going to be pivoting to a B2B model, what your business plan essentially looks like. How you plan to, monetize the application. So, will you be growing it through these partner relationships, or how will you go about doing the outreach to businesses and other organizations that may be helpful to achieve your goal?
Okay, we have considered like this in different stages. For example, the first stage can be to just try to negotiate with, large telecoms companies. I mean, like AT&T, Vodafone, that kind of companies, about bulk orders and how they can afford some within their accessibility programs or social responsibility programs. They can afford part of the cost of the subscriptions or the apps, or even the whole. That's something we can negotiate with them. I mean, in order to take advantage of the product that is already on stores. Okay, the other stage, we're working on an API, because for this kind of technology, it's very important to give third-party users a reliable tool to build their own solutions. I mean, disability, it's a so different scenario in depending on the situation, that probably many organizations would want to build their own solution for their specific problem. And probably our app is intended for another kind of problem. Actually, our apps are intended for daily life. I mean, being the street, going to a store, the daily life of the people with disabilities. But other industries can probably they want to build something more, or a more accurate solution for a very specific problem. So we're planning to do this B2B shift with this like multi-stage structure. I don't know if I answered correctly.
Yeah, that was helpful. And so as you look to scale up, what's your revenue growth projections looking like, and what countries will you be focusing on in your international expansion?
Well, regarding countries, as you can see, we are right now in 86 countries. So that is because of our language compatibility, but we have to definitely increase the user base within some specific regions. I mean, some regions have better situation of respect and inclusion for these people. And these regions can be North America, Europe, and probably Asia Pacific, and some countries of Oceania. Our region, Latin America, to be very, very honest, is one of the worst regions regarding respect and inclusion for these people. That's why actually in our country, we are not well known as we are known in other regions. So, I mean, in these kind of countries like North America, Asia Pacific, Europe, that's where we want to reach these kind of organizations. I mean, from now in actually 4 years, because we are almost in 2022. By 2026, we want to have 1 million users in the B2C structure, that probably these users can be derived from a B2B strategy and ultimately reach them through a B2B strategy. But we want to have 1 million recurrent subscribers. But it's still a microscopic percentage of the challenge.
Sure. Thank you, Hugo.
You're welcome, Carl.
Yeah, excuse me. I find it really interesting. Definitely has social impact. Fits the accessibility issues. Because I work with the big tech companies, I also know they're in this space as well, and they're escalating their penetration. So that's going to be potentially quite competitive. I noticed that you've been in business since 2016. So you've been in business 5 years. You've got some investment. Do you have any institutional investment right now? Institutional meaning people like myself, venture capital, or is it all friends and family to this point?
Actually not. The only thing that we have had are a couple of grants, but grants are very specifically allocated money. Apart from that, we are totally bootstrapped. And yes, we are in the market since 2016, but our MVPs were launched in 2017, and actually in 2019, we started to sell subscriptions. All the other stages were just MVPs, iterations, pivoting, a lot of solutions, because one of the things that we realized is that it's truly important to have, for example, people with disabilities in your team in order to build solutions that actually work. And that's something that we started to do in 2017. The first year, we're actually like 2 developers trying to build something, but as developers that don't have the disability, we were like creating a lot of code, a lot of solutions, but not realizing how useful is this.
Yeah, I know your conversion rate's roughly about 10% right now, right? Something like 24,000 users, but of which 2,300 are paid and so on. You're planning to scale to, let's say, 1 million using, another model. But then your revenues still are going to be quite modest, I think. I'm just talking from an investor standpoint. So it's something you're going to have to address, because you're being in business so long and you haven't scaled your user base. Do you have any letters of intent or things like that for your next stage of your business model? Like people saying, yes, we're definitely interested in partnering, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Last year we started to speak with a fund of Canada. Well, actually for an NDA reasons, I cannot reveal names, but yeah, we have letters of intent. And the thing is that in all our way from the foundation of the love, we have noticed that traditional investors always look for very fast and profitable exits. I mean, unicorns. And we are not a unicorn. We are more like a long-term, hardworking horse, because we mix like the social impact, of course, while making money, but we are not like a fintech that from today to the next year they can multiply by for a lot of orders of magnitude their operations and that kind of that. Our mission is a more long-term mission. So in the way we have spoken with a lot of investors, but once they realize that we are like in another slightly different scenario than making like an explosion of money, they just withdraw because they're expecting another thing, like the traditional investment. And put $1 in 1 year, give me $10. It's like the best possible scenario for many people, and it's okay. It's just different.
Yeah, I do understand, and I think it takes a special kind of investor as well. So, thank you. Those are my questions.
You're welcome, Stephen.
Okay, thanks a lot to Hugo for your presentation of the Q&A. All right, so guess good luck to you. All right, so let's move to the final pitch. A fire record from Nigeria. This is really great beauty of having all diverse startups from all different countries and continents. Okay, so Fire Record is a health data management platform that uses AI and blockchain to support health institutions and patients to make data-driven decisions and allow doctors to provide better healthcare for patients with real-time access and mobility of their patients' health data. So we have Hani today. So Hani, the stage is yours and you've got 5 minutes.
Thank you so much, Josh. Actually, we're a Kenyan company. My name is Umuhani, and I'm really excited for this opportunity to showcase AfriaRecord. AfriaRecord is a health tech platform with the mission to empower patients to have ownership of their own health records. Yes, Africa has a lot of challenges when it comes to the healthcare sector, including limited health facilities and medical practitioners. But perhaps also critical is the lack of health data infrastructure and mobility of existing health data. And I have to emphasize how critical this problem is, because when we think of data, we usually look at it from the point of profitability. But when it comes to health industry, data can actually save lives. That is why we have built a decentralized patient-driven platform that puts patients at the center of the health ecosystem. Patients are able to capture, store, and access their health data across various devices. At AfriaRecord, we believe that that treatment happens in the hospital and healthcare happen outside. This is why we're very keen to bridge the gap. If I were to develop symptoms right now, like most Kenya, the first thing I will do is visit a local pharmacy to grab over-the-counter medication. Should my symptom persist, as a last resort, I will visit the any nearest health facility, which is both close to me and affordable. This bundled solution is very dangerous and puts the life of many patients at risk, as it forces the doctor to treat me based on observable symptoms rather than my full medical history. But with AfriaRecord, I am able to easily log into any devices or any access channel and be able to access my records, whether it's the standalone patient portal that allows me to capture my health records from across multiple hospitals, or it's our mobile app that allows me to track my symptoms and be able to easily share my data, or our USSD app that allows me to access my records without internet connectivity. As you can imagine, the healthcare industry is seeing a lot of new innovation, but AfriaRecord sits alone as the only product that is both tokenized and also aligns with the SDG development goals. What makes us unique is that we built on smart technologies, including AI and blockchain. We use clinical data and external data from wearable devices to power our AI models. for both predictive and proactive patient care. Our symptom anomaly detection tool helps the county government of Mombasa to manage the COVID-19 pandemic more effectively. We also use blockchain technology to store medical data in tamper-resistant, decentralized personal data hub. One of the things that limit adoption of health system in Kenya is the high licensing costs of health systems. That's why we develop a dynamic model that we offer to health facility for just a standard cost of $5 per patient per year. And for chronic ill patients that use our patient portal and our AI tool for self-management, we offer them at just $15 per year. So far, we have onboarded over 40 hospitals and 120,000 patients. We are currently live in Kenya and Nigeria, and we're looking to deploy in South Africa and Cameroon in the first quarter of 2022. Our partners are helping us achieve our mission. We have formed strategic partners across various industries, including telecommunication organizations like Telkom Kenya, that provided free internet to the facility that uses our solution. Our management team is made up of experts from both the technology and medical field and have combined 70 years of experience. Our core team is made up of brilliant young Kenyan talent. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks a lot, Annie. And okay, let's start with the Q&A. So maybe this time we can start with Carlo.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd be glad to. Zahudi, could you maybe help us understand a little bit more the case study that you mentioned in your presentation? You mentioned that the city of Mombasa was more successful in handling the COVID situation because of your solution. Could you give us a little bit more of an understanding of how that worked and why it was so effective for them?
Yeah, sure. So this we actually we developed everything last year, so we are pretty new. We're COVID baby. So during when we were piloting, Mombasa County used Mombasa County used our solution for COVID management. So we offered them everything from, we mapped out the entire management of COVID from case investigation to symptom tracking to issuing of COVID certificates and such. So we mapped out the entire, we actually went there and we mapped out the entire processes and we connected them. And it was effective because one, we have mobile app that patients are using to capture and to check their symptoms. So every time the patients were capturing their symptoms, a pin was being dropped to show them hotspots of where most symptoms are coming in. And also because they were actively testing for COVID, the results also determine we mapped out zones where they were receiving the highest number of positive.
Thank you. And maybe if you can also help me understand, under the hood, the AI implications. So what drives, how is the machine learning and AI component working inside of your solution?
Yeah, sure. So it's quite simple for the COVID, the symptom anomaly detection. We use both geographical, the symptoms that we're receiving, and we also use the geographic pin of where the locations that are receiving. So we use isolation forests to detect that and be able to map out the hotspots and which symptom correlates with which location and which disease and illnesses and such.
And just the last super quick question, and then I'll hand over. South Africa being your next market it's a challenging market. It's a very mature market, right? So what is your strategy for entering that market, and how are you going to use partnerships to support that development?
We actually have formed already a strategic partner who is taking us to the market. So our partners, our go-to-markets, our partners are at the core of our go-to-market strategy. So one of the partners that is taking us to South Africa will be offering our patient portal, our standing patient portal for chronic ill patients. So that's the strategy that we're moving to South Africa. And I agree, it's very mature and it's highly competitive, but I think we stand a good chance.
Thank you. Good luck, Zahudi.
Thank you.
Maybe Stephen?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very impressive the work that you've accomplished to this point, and again, it clearly has a lot of sustainable development goals sort of mapping as well, and particularly it's scaling in Africa. In fact, I know John Camara, so I believe you're connected with this Ada Lab. So it's remarkable, and you're doing blockchain. I guess I'm always interested from an investment standpoint because I'm an investor, right? So. Do you have some kind of revenue forecast, or did I miss some of that? Let's say in the next, this year, next year, and maybe by 2025?
Yes, we do have some revenue forecast. Already we made money from the Mombasa project, and we do have some clients already through the 40 hospital facilities. So we are looking to generate around 150,000.
And in terms of your sort of investment strategy right now, do you have strategic investors in your current platform that are like country-based or government or larger organizations? It looks like it's more than friends and family. So as I mentioned, sounds like you got some institutional investors in there in some way, and that makes a difference, by the way.
Yeah, so we do, right, currently it's friends and family, but we are actively fundraising currently. So we're hoping to close our next round, seed fund, angel VC, and we're hoping that within the next few years, the two years, we can be able to really capture the markets and expand across the African continent.
Well, you're definitely unique in your application of AI and blockchain, and then this sort of combination of healthcare and health records. So thank you. That's all my questions.
Thank you so much.
Okay, Sarah, it's your turn.
Great, thanks. Yeah, next primary question. Could you just share a little bit more with us about what is primarily like the main differentiator, with your product?
We are patient driven. So most of health facility or healthcare solution are built either for the organization, because that's where the money is. So for us, what's unique is that we are patient driven. We build first for patients, and then we consider the rest of the ecosystem players.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So, wow. So we finished all pitches from 5 great teams. All right. Okay. So now there are a lot of things that we have to do from now on. Okay. So firstly, I'm going to give a little bit of time for our judges to make the final decision on who will be the winner and the second place. So as I mentioned, I shared the link with the private chat room here in Zoom, so you guys can connect. And if you have any problem with connecting with your mobile phone, you can temporarily disconnect the Zoom and then reconnect again after your discussion in a separate link. And I think that Stephen is already there, and then Carlo and Sarah, and then you guys can connect as well. And then we are going to have some interesting part here. So it's a voting time for the audience. As I mentioned earlier at the beginning of this session, we will have the vote from the audience. So except for the judges and the startups, and anyone can participate. So we are going to share the QR code and also URL link in the chat room here. So everybody can vote and then choose the best two teams. So Gino, can you share the screen here? Okay. So here we go. So you guys can connect to the link to this poll by using the QR code or this URL. All right. Okay, so while our judges are making decision and then our audience are doing a vote, and then I just would like to ask just one question to some of the finalists today, as long as time allows. So basically the Innovation Factory was created to support and help startups scale up their AI solutions to achieve the SDGs. But also, I believe that there are a lot of the challenges you guys are facing as a startup. It could be a challenge and problem about collecting the right data, or maybe even educating your clients of your solutions, or like the competition with the big tech company and some kind of regulations and everything. So we also would like to hear what kind of challenges you are facing as a startup, and so that we can understand better about some kind of barriers that the startup have to overcome in order to really scale up their innovation. So we can start with some questions with the some of our finalists. Maybe Honey, right? Yeah. So so in your region and also in your business domain, and just to share a little bit about some kind of biggest challenges that you are facing, and then how you guys are overcoming it.
Yeah, for us, the biggest challenge is patient education. So we need to educate the public on why using exponential technologies like AI and blockchain is actually good for them. So convincing them that a machine can dictate and help you and guide you through with your illnesses is a new concept, to say the least. So it's been quite interesting, but I think we're receiving good reception, and people are actually willing to listen, and that's the beauty about Kenya and why we started in Kenya, because they are quick to adapt new technologies.
Okay. What about the also challenge problem, the doctor on call in also your region of Southeast Asia?
Yeah, I think thanks, Josh. Right, so Doctor on Call started 5 years ago, right? And if you guys can remember, 5 years ago, life was very, very different. Yeah, so we started in a world where digital healthcare was more of an afterthought for most people, and you don't wake up and say like, hey, I'm going to use AI for my health, or I can go just walk down to my doctors or my pharmacies, right? And then it sort of changed about 24 months ago, back when we received a call from the government and telling us, oh, we need help on something called the Wuhan virus, that really just hit our shores almost 24 months ago, right? And the problem has changed, right, from a very the market that we spoke to many investors and people before the pandemic, and they're like, oh, okay, digital healthcare, okay, that sounds nice, thank you very much. And it was very hard to convince people. And let's look at Uber, right? They started a long time ago, and there was one point where you had to tell people, hey, you can get into the car, yeah, to take your rides and get your food done, right? So digital healthcare is almost the same, right? And it took a whole pandemic that changed the world to get people into our car. So before that, it was really hard to talk to people, and no one really believed in digital healthcare, that there was always going to be access to your doctors in our pharmacies. And now, post the pandemic, right, the problems are totally different, right? So post the pandemic, we've grown 600%. We have not enough supply. Yeah? So just to serve all the demand that's coming in is crazy. I'm increased my team size by about from 2 people to 20 people to 30 people. And right now, our company is about 100 people. So there's still not enough to satisfy the demand that's growing in the healthcare sector, right? So now everyone has realized that, oh, okay, we have to digitize. It's a post-pandemic world, and digital healthcare is at the forefront of. Number one, healthcare is going to be very important. It's even more important now, and digital part is also very important. So, yeah, now my problem is that I can't have enough supply. So hence, the AI project is very interesting for us because we will actually help more doctors. We will amplify the capacity for healthcare across the world.
Yeah, well, actually, the healthcare is one of the most regulated area in every country, and then I understand how hard and difficult, especially in healthcare startups are really, struggling to solve one problem, and the next problem comes, and the next issues, and the next regulation comes. But I think things are changing these days everywhere. So especially because of pandemic, even thanks to pandemic, people believe the power of even the remote, healthcare, and then all the different type of healthcare services. So yeah, so we hope that your business is really still going on, and then
and maybe I just add.
growing.
I'll just add is that the conversations with investors have changed as well, right? So the conversations, we spoke to 150 investors before the pandemic, and no one really replied our call, no one would talk to us. But after the pandemic, the conversations really changed like 180 degrees.
Yeah, right. Okay, well, thank you very much for sharing yourselves as well. All right, let's move to the Hugo from Talov. Okay, so I also would like to hear about any technical challenges or regulatory challenges whatsoever, and also just share your thoughts and ideas and opinions about all these challenges and how you're overcoming. You're on mute.
Yeah, okay, thanks. About the challenges that we currently have, right? Yeah, well, in this quite hectic times, for us, from the developer side, we haven't had problems because we work in a remote mode practically from the beginning. But it's real that, for example, for some of our users, it's quite hard to keep subscribing or even even using the services, because in many realities, in many countries, the situation is still very challenging for many people. So that's I think that factor is something very challenging for all the companies here and for all the companies in general, about how to transform their business models in order to reach people, but considering all the realities from this time. So, for all of us, I think that all these hectic times have been like a transformation stage, and it's very important to notice that in many of these transformation requirements, AI, it's truly it's truly useful because it can help a lot clients, users, and even startups or entrepreneurs, to optimize a lot of things. So I'm very happy to be here with all of this group of very interesting business, and thanks to AI for Good, to ITU, for promote the ethical use of AI in entrepreneurship and in business in general. That's very important.
Thank you very much for your kind comments. So we're definitely committed to working together with the innovative startups, because a lot of innovation these days around the world is coming from the startups and the great ideas and disruptive technologies innovation. So we definitely want to leverage those, the innovative technologies and ideas to really achieve the SDGs. Thanks a lot for sharing yourself. Okay, so we are going to close the public vote, and then I think the result already was made. So Ginu, can you share the result first so we can see who will be the winner? So I'm excited to see it. Okay, so audience best pick is, it's getting slow. Talof. Congratulations, you go. Right, okay.
Thanks a lot.
So we're going to separately communicate with you and then have an interview with you guys, and then also highlight your business model and technology in our blogs and some kind of our communication materials. So you will have an extra visibility, and congratulations. All right, okay. Now it's time for the really official announcement of the winner of this year's Innovation Factory. So we now have Dr. Jessup Lee, who is the Director of Standardization Bureau of the ITU. I'm very honored to have you here, and especially during your mission in Dubai. So Jessup, please make the announcement. We are so excited.
Yes, thank you very much, Joshi. I have to start with my special thanks to our judges of the really difficult decision to choose one winner from such great startups. Now, before I announce the result, let me say that all you are innovators, you are already winners. I really appreciate your challenge. To have made it this far to this point in your careers, your business, and your life, I want to sincerely congratulate you all and thank you for your participation in AI for Good Innovation Factory. Your innovative spirit encourages us to think about how we apply technologies every day to change lives for good. You have inspired us all tonight, and we wish you the best luck as you continue your startup journey. Innovation led by startups is making more and more important impact on the planet. It creates new jobs more than ever before. It increases the world GDP significantly, makes new types of heroes like you guys, challenges our lifestyle, solves so many problems that no one has attempted to tackle. So, and of course, it introduces novel solutions to achieve SDGs. So the ITU will continue to help innovative startups grow and scale up their ideas and the solutions in various ways next year. So with those words, I'd like to announce the winning startup for this year Innovation Factory Grand Final. I have on my screen. So let me start with the second place. We have Cattle as a second place. Congratulations. The curtains, little slow, but Cattle, you are the second place. Okay, and with the top score, the winner is, we need some drums like, so the winner is Dr. On Call. Dr. On Call, congratulations. Again, our screen showing of the Dr. On Call. Please do a Dr. On Call. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So on behalf of ITU and our UN partners, congratulations to you all, but all others, I also appreciate that you are enough to deserve congratulated together. So with that, back to you, Josh.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Jessup Lee, and then congratulations to Dr. Cole. So give us a very short, your acceptance speech.
So I think thank you very much to the judges and also the other participants. I think all of you guys have been brilliant. I'd like to thank particularly the organizers who have been so kind to take time and really bring all this ecosystem together. The support for startups that you guys are providing is tremendous, and we really appreciate it, because not only it helps across to gain recognition, to really bring AI across to the world. I think it helps the entire world to be more sustainable, and I really applaud And thank you guys for that. Thank you very much. And for giving us this opportunity to grow and to really achieve more than we could ever dream of. Thank you. Just for one more thing, right? I just want to share that Yahya here is actually an intern, his second year in a university. Yeah, so that's a very amazing thing. He's a university student, still studying, and he's working on our AI projects. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Maybe could you guys turn on all your camera, then we can have a the screenshot for memory of this event, right? So everybody turn on your camera. All right, great, excellent. And maybe Jinu, could you screen share it? Everybody's here? Okay, so may smile, great. Yeah. Great. Okay. Oh, Jinu, did you do that? Can you confirm?
Yes, I did.
Okay, thank you very much. All right. Okay, thank you. All right. So now we really finished this year's journey of the Innovation Factory. It's been so amazing to see so diverse and creative innovation from all around the world. And we are so happy to learn a lot from great, inspiring entrepreneurs, and they're very, very happy to be able to support the startups and help them grow by bridging your ideas and solutions to ideal solution seekers. Especially next year, as just mentioned, the Innovation Factory will be one step further upgraded to accelerate the growth of the startups by the more structured programs and matchmaking and mentoring and networking with the various partners. So we'll move forward to empower startups to make bigger impact to achieve the SDGs. And thanks a lot to all you guys. All you guys were so great. And then thanks a lot to all our judges for great contributions. And thanks a lot to Jessup and Reinhard for your great remarks. And thanks a lot to all my colleagues and staff for the supporting this event. And I'm so happy to finalize this event such successfully. Great. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you very much.
Rewind selector. Rewind selector. Rewind selector. Rewind selector. Selector, rewind selector, rewind selector, rewind selector, rewind selector, rewind selector. Selector, rewind selector, rewind selector, rewind selector, rewind selector, rewind selector. selector. Rewind selector. Rewind selector. Rewind selector. Rewind selector.